Hey guys, Girl About Library, and I'm here today with my Hey guys, Girl About Library, and I'm here today with my March reading wrap-up. March 2018. What did I read? Keep watching to find out. Not much. I didn't read that much. It was a busy seems like an understatement. It was a tumultuous, exciting, thrill ride of a month, and I'm going to be making a life update video in the next couple of days to kind of let you guys in on what's going on in my little world, because things are changing and I'm sure that is going to impact all of this, and I'm excited. I'm super excited for all of these changes, including my hair. I changed my hair. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that. As far as reading goes, I read 4 books. 4. But I'm giving myself emotional credit, which is a thing if you have issues. So the book that I'm giving myself credit for having read a book but I didn't finish it is American Gods by Neil Gaiman. I am buddy reading this with Rhiannon from Crescent Moon Reads, and she's delightful. So the budding reading experience of it has been, it's been great. And I'm still I'm in the process of reading this book. I think I read 300 pages of it. I don't know, I have lost it in my travels. It's somewhere between here in South Texas and Missouri. I think it's probably in Austin. I don't know. The point is, I don't have it. And I'm probably gonna listen to the rest of it because I don't know where it went. I'll find it eventually, or someone in Austin has it and they'll enjoy it. But I read a book's worth of this book. It's 560 pages, my version is, and I read about 300 of them. So, I mean, you know, 560 pages doesn't sound like that many pages, but this book isn't just 560 pages. It's 560 pages at 4-point font. The font in this book is so small. I wish I had it with me so I could show you. I don't, because I'm a terrible booktuber and traveler. But yeah, it's just the words are so small. So that's excuse number 1. I just make a list of excuses for why I didn't finish this. So that's excuse number 1. Excuse number 2 is that I don't know that much. Oh, comments. Thanks, guys. I don't know that much about mythology. And by not that much, I mean almost nothing. I watched Hercules as a kid. That's all of my knowledge about mythology. And so reading this book kind of feels like being at a party, and people are telling a story. Someone's telling a story. Hopefully they're better at telling stories than I am at telling this story, because I don't know where I'm going with this. A story where I feel like I'm totally missing the jokes. Everyone else is laughing, but I'm not, and I don't like that feeling. No one likes that feeling of I'm not getting this. And I know I'm not. I know I'm completely missing a ton of mythology references, but I mean, I can't change that I haven't had an education in that. I could, I guess, go read a bunch of mythology books and come revisit this book, but I'm probably not gonna do that. I don't know. Basically, this book has been a struggle and I didn't finish it, and I do intend on finishing it. I'm gonna finish reading it. I think if I would if I could just let go of those feelings of inferiority complex about not knowing about mythology and feeling I'm missing out on the plot, I think I could still enjoy this book. But it's still, I just can't imagine letting go of that feeling of I'm missing parts of what's happening right now. The plot of the book, from what I can tell so far, and that alone should say something, because I'm over 300 pages into this book, and it's only 560, it's 560 pages, definitely not only 560, but it's, at this point I feel I should have a much better idea of what is happening in this book. From what I can tell so far, and there's no spoilers here because I don't know what's happening, but the main character, Shadow, was in prison. He is released from prison. He connects with this guy named Wednesday, who, thank you Rhiannon for telling me he's God, because I would have had no idea. He hooks up with this guy named Wednesday, and he is, from what I can tell, trying to get all of the gods together, like the Norse gods together, because they are going to have some sort of battle against the American gods. None of that has actually happened yet in the book though. It has just been Shadow and Wednesday talking and going on trips to visit different gods, and I mean there are parts of this book that I enjoy and I can see what Neil Gaiman is doing and I enjoy it, but there is also a tiny part of me that is really not, and so I'm struggling. Another book that I read in the month of March is The Girl Who Drank the Moon. I read this for middle grade March, and if you're not familiar with what that is, although I feel like you should be by now, but if you're not, I will link videos down below. It is a readathon of middle grade books, basically, and this is the one that was chosen as the book for everyone to read, and so that's what I did. I read it, and before reading this book, I can't remember the last like middle grade book I had read. Even when I was like middle grade aged reading level, I feel like I kind of fought reading those books. Like I was excited about reading books for adults because like once you can read, like you're not limited by age. And so I like was more excited about reading adult books, which looking back, I'm like, but you probably weren't getting what was going on. But I was excited to be reading them anyway. And as an adult now, like I'm kind of surprised reading The Girl Who Drank the Moon. Like the language and stuff in this book was not what I expected. It was very easy reading this book to forget that I was reading a book that was meant for middle schoolers. It didn't read that way. There are a bunch of different storylines that kind of come together in this book, but basically it is about a town, a fictional, you know, fantasy, it's a fantasy novel, a fantasy town in which every single year there is a baby who at like the set point of the year, whoever's baby is youngest is sacrificed to the witch who lives in this village, who lives in the woods. And it's a pretty dark start for a middle grade novel, which I wasn't expecting either. But from there, it is incredibly hopeful and has just like these beautiful messages that are so well communicated in like adult words and language. Like I expected everything to be kind of like a couple levels down, but that's definitely not the case, and that was a pleasant surprise. For me personally as a reader, I don't read a lot of fantasy. I generally don't enjoy it, and so the parts that felt like very fantasy heavy were a little bit just like, I don't know, cringy, I guess would be the word for me. I didn't love those parts, but I think if you enjoy fantasy, you will love this book. Most of the women that I read it with, because I read it with a couple of other awesome booktubers, they all really enjoyed it, and they love fantasy. So if you enjoy fantasy, this is one to check out. Next up is Before I Let You Go by Kelly Rimmer. I was sent this book in exchange for an honest review, so thank you so much to the author and publisher for sending it my way. Before I Let You Go is about two sisters, Annie and Lexi, and they are two very, very different people. Lexi is fairly responsible. She is a doctor. I mean, as responsible as you have to be a practicing doctor. And then her sister Annie is addicted to drugs. She is a talented author, but her life has taken this turn, and their relationship has become very fractured because of it. And usually when they communicate, it's just because Lexi is going to be rescuing Annie from the situation she's gotten herself into. And so that's how the book starts. The book starts with one of those like, come help me, rescue me type situations, because Annie is pregnant at this point and she's addicted to drugs as well. She's addicted to meth. And she calls her sister Lexi in the middle of the night to come and help her because she's experiencing signs of preeclampsia. She doesn't know that, but her sister, who's a doctor, does. And so her sister goes to her, takes her to the hospital, and from there, reading, you kind of get this view of like what happens when you are addicted to drugs and you're pregnant and your baby is therefore addicted to drugs. What does that look like? From that angle, I found this book very interesting. I think they did a really good job, having personally experienced preeclampsia myself. I think that the author did a really good job like exploring that, because you're on the one hand very worried about like your unborn child and also your own health, but you simultaneously have to try to like keep it cool because your blood pressure, like nothing sends your blood pressure higher than like fear for your unborn child. And so I feel like the author did a really good job with that. I really like the way that she captured Annie, because she doesn't just, you know, she's not just this flat character who's addicted to drugs. They really go in depth into like, how did that happen? What happened in Annie's life that didn't happen in Lexi's life, that Lexi's a doctor and Annie has taken this other path. But I was very frustrated reading this book as well. I don't typically read books like this, like issue books that deal with like very specific issues within them, because it's very hard for me to separate, or like I get frustrated dealing with how I feel about the issue and like how that issue is portrayed in the story. So like I personally have a lot of empathy for people who are addicted to drugs and become pregnant and then like lose their children, and it's a broken system and it sucks. But at the same time, in the book, I didn't feel like it was explored very well. The heart of the book and trying to figure out like what the author's message was, for me, was very muddled, because at times it kind of felt like they were pushing for Annie to be able to just have her kid. Like, her sister at one point in the book is like looking for a loophole so that Annie wouldn't have to go to rehab or jail. Like, she would just be able to be released from the hospital, which is obviously like completely unrealistic. And it's such a gray moral situation. And I don't feel like that was explored quite enough, to the point where it kind of felt like, so are you suggesting that Annie should have her child back and not have any repercussions from the things that have been going on? Like, I don't know. It was hard. I couldn't really tell what the author was suggesting, and so it was a little frustrating, but I do think it's an important issue. I mean, it's definitely relevant, and I enjoyed reading a book about it, but there was some frustration as well. Another book that I read this month was The Sinner by Petra Hamasfar. I buddy read that as well with a booktuber named Chelsea, and I will link her channel down below. And it got weird. not Chelsea and I. The book was super weird. I'm sorry, Chelsea, if you're watching this. It got weird. And I think both Chelsea and I gave this like somewhere between 2 and 3 stars, which is such a bummer, because the idea of this book is super cool. It follows a woman named Cora, and one day Cora's on the beach with her family and she stabs a complete stranger. And so you spin the book trying to figure out like, why did Cora do this? Because she doesn't seem like the kind of person who would just like stab a stranger. I don't know what kind of person that is, but Cora's not that. And so like the idea of it was really cool, and I had watched an episode or 2 of the miniseries that was created from the book, and I really enjoyed that. Like, I wanted to find out what the ending was and why Cora did it. So I picked up the book, and it was just, it was so hard to read. I think this might be the kind of thing that does make a better movie than book, which is crazy, I know, but like, I mean, you know, it can happen. Not a normal thing to say, but I enjoyed the episodes of the miniseries that I watched way more than the book. And I think for me, the biggest problem with this book was that it is from inside Cora's mind. And in the show, the information is all of the same. Like, my mother-in-law finished the series, so we kind of compared notes. And the information and like the story itself is the same between the two for the most part. When you're reading the book, you're inside Cora's mind. And so it's very scattered and not as suspenseful as it is just like confusing and frustrating, because in the like mini-series, it's exciting because you don't know what Cora is saying, what of what Cora is saying is true and what is like the story she's fabricating. Whereas in the book, you feel very much more aware of what is real and what is not, because you're inside Cora's mind and you know when she is fabricating a story. And so some of the suspense is taken away because of that, and also, I mean, a lot of my enjoyment, because it was really frustrating to just be like, oh, stop lying. Like that was how I felt for most of the book. Like I just wanted to be like, just shake her and be like, just tell them the truth. You know the truth, like just say it. And yeah, I wanted to like this. I was excited to buddy read it, and I'm glad that I buddy read it with Chelsea, because to have somebody else to commiserate with in this reading frustration was super duper helpful. I think I would have probably stopped reading it and just watched the miniseries if I hadn't been buddy reading it, or like DNF'd it, or it just would have taken me forever to read it, because I just didn't have that like desire to pick it up, because I knew I was gonna get frustrated when I did, and that's not a great feeling. Going through these books, I'm like, this month was kind of a bummer for reading. Like it just wasn't that great. Like all of the books had good moments, and I'm not like, I don't regret reading them. Although this center's like, I'm on the fence with that one. I don't regret reading them, but like, yeah, these weren't. Moving on. The last book that I read, like the last day of the month, I read it in like 2 days, was All We Ever Wanted by Emily Giffin. I requested a copy of this book because I just have this like insatiable desire to read Emily Giffin's books. I don't read, I would say like her and Jojo Moyes. It's like, I have to know what they've written. I want to see it. And so I requested this one. I was super excited to be able to read it. I don't feel like I can say that much about it because it doesn't come out until June, and I'll have like a full review then. This book, very much like Before I Let You Go, I enjoyed parts of and also really struggled with it because it is one of those issue books where the way that the issue is presented causes me some frustration. I do think it does a really good job of presenting like the perspective that it presents. I could see people taking issue with whether or not that position needs to be presented. But basically this book is about a woman who lives in Nashville. She's like upper class of Nashville, and her son at a party takes Snapchats a very awful photo of a girl with a racist comment attached, and that photo is sent out to his friends and then of course makes it throughout the entire school. And so the perspective is told from the girl whose picture is taken, the mother of the son who took that picture, and then also the father of the daughter of whom the picture was taken. And so all of their perspectives kind of come together in the story, and I don't know, the way issue books are so hard. Like, they're important and I enjoy reading them, but reviewing them and talking about them, because then you have to get into the issue, and I don't think there's enough time in the world to sit down and talk about all of the feelings you have about these kinds of issues. And so it's a struggle, but I could see a lot of people really enjoying this book. I could also see people not enjoying it. You never know. I'm excited to see what happens when it comes out and what people have to say. So stay tuned for more on that. So that was my reading in March. Not super successful. Hopefully April will be better. It's April 6th and I have finished 0 books. So probably not, but we'll see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.